In this video, I'm going to show you how to make pretty ombre fondant ruffles for your cake. I don't know why I keep going like this. Hi, it's Karolyn. Welcome back to another video, and if this is your first time here, welcome. And if you want to see the different tips and tricks and ways that I decorate and bake cakes, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss any of the videos that I release. And little disclaimer here, I'm really insecure about it, but I freaking need the hair salons to open. I have this little flip going on right here. Like, what is this? Ugh, my nails, my hair, like everything's a mess. So you're not allowed to judge. I mean, I guess you can if you want to, but whatever. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I'm going to show you, like I said before, how I make these marshmallow fondant ombre ruffles for my cake. So if you want to see the technique that I do for this, then just keep on watching. I have the window open because it is freaking gorgeous out, so you may hear the birds chirping and everything, but whatever. Anyway, so to do this, I have some marshmallow fondant. I can link my video on how I make my fondant. As always, I mix a little bit of Tylose powder into the fondant so that the fondant will dry harder, kind of like gum paste. A little bit goes a long way with this, so I would just do for this is probably a pound of fondant, and I probably do a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of the Tylose powder. Sprinkle it on, knead it in. I already did that, then I decided I was going to film. Also, I have some Crisco to rub in my hands so my hands don't stick to the fondant. I have some cornstarch. I have this little ribbon cutter, I can link this below, and a ball tool. Doesn't really matter what brand or anything. This came in a set of 3 different sizes. This is the biggest size. And also this little pad, it comes in a flower former set, and I'm going to set the ribbon on it so I can ruffle the edges. So I will link everything that you need below. So I'm making this ombre, so I'm going to start with white and go to light pink all the way to a deep dusty rose. So I'm going to do probably two ribbons of each color until it goes down. You'll see what I mean. So I'm grabbing enough fondant just to roll out 2 strips. My hands are starting to stick to the fondant, so I'm just gonna do a little Crisco. My hands are super clean. I just washed them. I didn't touch anything. Okay, roll it in a log. And then roll it out. I'm putting this on a 7-inch cake, so I need it to be, I just know just from working on this for so long how long it has to be. But if you want to, you can measure the circumference of your cake and then make sure that you're rolling out your ribbons. Little cornstarch down so it doesn't stick. And then roll it out. Just lifting the fondant as needed to make sure that it's not sticking to the countertop. Okay, now this ribbon cutter, it doesn't really have any measurements, but it has a bunch of different little pieces in here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stick these 2 on the end. I'm not gonna use these 2. And whatever is in between these 2 plates is how thick your ribbon is going to be. So I'm doing the side that does not have an extra little nubbin here, like Chandler, little nubbin. And I'm doing a small one and a big one, and that should be thick enough. And then just cut out 2 ribbons. I'm going to put the ribbon on this little piece. Now, I'm sure these come in like bigger than just this little square, but this is what I have and this is what I work with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little ball and I'm going to go half on the fondant and half off of the fondant. And I'm just making little circles and I'm thinning out the edge to just give it a ruffly look. And then as I do that whole little section, I'm going to move it down and just repeat the process to do it down the whole strip. So it just makes the top thin and ruffly. And do that for both pieces. And then I'm just gonna set these aside for probably like 5 to 10 minutes so they can hold their shape a little bit. So when I move them to put them on the cake, they don't mess up. In the meantime, I'm going to color the next shade of fondant and do the same process. So the color that I'm using for this is this dusty rose. I can link this below. It's like a dusty rose, if you will. It's like a pale, antique-y kind of pink, not so in-your-face pink, if that makes any sense. So since I'm doing this ombre, I really just want a tiny, tiny little bit on here to just get a little hint of pink, because the color is going to grow as it goes down the cake, so I don't want too much on here. Just knead this together. Really light pink, which is what I wanted. Now I'm going to do the same process and roll this out and cut the strips and ruffle the edges just like I did before. Okay, so now what I did, I just took the back of this paintbrush and made lines back in the back of the cake. So I knew this is where the ribbons are going to start and stop, because this is going to be the front of my cake. This is going to be the back. So just so I don't get confused. So what I have here is a little bit of shortening and a paintbrush. Why did I say it like that? A paintbrush. Get some shortening on the brush and just brush it along the cake. This is best done when the cake is just out of the refrigerator, so the icing is solid, so it doesn't get messed up while you're putting the ribbon on. This has been sitting out of the refrigerator probably for about 20 minutes, so oh well. But the reason I like to use Crisco instead of water or piping gel for this is because Crisco shortening is forgiving and you can move the fondant around if needed. So I'm going to take my first white, not the light pink, the very white, and put that where the little line is in the back. I'm going to make sure that the ruffle is sticking up over the top of the cake and just go around and lightly press this on. Making sure that I'm not stretching out the fondant. I'm lightly lifting it up and using my other thumb to place it where it should go. Now, if I happen to bring it down too low, I can just press it up. I can move it down. I can move it because the shortening allows you to move the fondant around. If I was using water, wherever you stick it, it would just stick. And then wherever it meets in the back, just take the scissors and cut, and then make a little seam. Then I usually just take my finger and press along the bottom just so it's really adhered to the cake. Pretty. Now, what you can do is you can always take your ball tool and maneuver it however you'd like to go, or you can use your fingers, you know, just move it back and forth. I like to do that when it's actually all on the cake. So you're going to do the same thing. Now for the next layer, I'm going to take a little more Crisco and I'm going to paint it on, it's going to go on half of the fondant strip and then half on the cake. And do the same thing. Cut the end off so you have an even starting point. Start at exactly the same spot. And this time I'm starting it a little bit below so the ruffle is a little bit underneath the other one. I hope that makes sense. You can see what I'm doing. I want to make sure that it's not just flat against the cake. I want it to ruffle. So if it's too flat, I'm taking my thumb and I'm pushing it that way so the fondant ruffles a little more. And again, where it meets at the end, cut it and make the seam. And then take your finger and press it down. Now I'm going to move on to the light pink and do the same thing. Start with the shortening and do half on the fondant, half on the cake. And now I'm just going to continue the process. I'm going to color the fondant a deeper pink, cut out 2 ribbons, ruffle them, and put them on the cake until I get all the way down to the bottom. So I'm on the last color, the deepest pink, and what I did here, because at the very bottom, sometimes I need just a really, really thin ruffle. So I have a strip here that is just about a half of the size of the strips that I've been using. And I basically cut it with this, and I just took the pizza cutter and cut it so it was thinner. And I'm just going to ruffle the edge just like I've been doing. And now I'm gonna put them on the cake, and I will show you what I do. So doing the same thing, taking the Crisco and painting the fondant and half on the cake. Just a really thin layer of Crisco. And now you can see it's actually going to be fine if you leave it like this, but I like to add a little tiny ruffle at the bottom. So that's where I have this thin one here, and I just want to put it up against the cake to see how thick it's going to be. And I just feel like that looks better if you have like a little ruffle, like a smaller, or a, what am I trying to say? One that isn't as high, just a smaller ruffle at the bottom. It just looks a little more complete. So just doing the same thing, taking the Crisco, wiping it around, and then sticking the final layer on. And here's your pretty ruffly cake. So what you could do is you can take a paintbrush or, you know, whatever you want to use, some kind of tool, and just maneuver these into place just so they look a little more uniform, or if you want them to look a little more wonky, like whatever you prefer. And there's the pretty fondant ruffles on your cake. I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator, and then I will decorate it later. So here you go. Here is your pretty little ombre fondant ruffles on your cake. I actually also have videos out how I make the name and paint it gold, and how I do my toppers. So I can link that below. I'm going to put this down so I don't drop it. I'm trying to think of what do I need to say about this? That is just one technique of ruffles that you can do. I do have other videos of how I make buttercream ruffles, so I can link that below as well. And I really can't think of anything else to say about this. I should really prepare in advance, like what I want to go over in the end, but this one is pretty self-explanatory. And I know I say that all the time, but I always think it's self-explanatory until someone asks me a question. I'm like, oh, I should have said that. But I really can't think of anything else to say about this. So if you have any questions, leave them below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And like always, please like this video if you liked it. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already and you want to see more videos like this. And you can follow me on social media. I am on Facebook and Instagram, and I have my website. I will link all of that below. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you